Hi, everybody. This is Steve, Monday Chief Forecaster with Rowan County Weather. And over the past few months, you've seen me do interviews with various high school coaches, also some Charlotte FC coaches here lately, as well as different NASCAR drivers working their way up through the ranks. And I've also been talking to student athletes as well. And I'm really honored to be joined here today by someone who I've met and become friends with over the first two seasons with Charlotte FC of covering their matches. She is the radio analyst for Charlotte FC. She is really everywhere. I mean, she's like the female version of Ryan Seacrest and Michael Strahan, in my opinion. You can't turn the TV on without seeing her on maybe like Queen City News or something like that, talking Charlotte FC. She's on Sirius XM radio with the United States of Soccer, just all over the place. Jessica Charman, it is a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad to be here. And as you say, you've had a lot of amazing guests, and I'm grateful to be one of them now. And hopefully, we can get a great conversation that ends up being helpful.
Yes, absolutely. So, Jessica, I really wanted to have you on. I had Jason Osborne on, who is the coach of the Charlotte FC Academy U17 team, and I had him really kind of talking about not only his background but also how that team's done this season, and then really some ways that the boys or young men who are in high school or even maybe even grade school, they're working their way through the ranks and trying to make their way into the next level of their soccer career. Just some insight on that. I wanted to really touch base with you, about the young ladies as well. I don't want them to get left out because there are some amazing young ladies here in Rowan County and the surrounding counties who are doing some fantastic things, not only on the pitch, but in the classroom as well. And I would love to get some insight on how they can move forward. But before we do that, why don't you tell everyone watching a little bit about Jessica Charman? Like, give us your background because you've got a very interesting background.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously you can probably tell by the way I speak that I wasn't born and raised in Charlotte. So started off my life in England, and anyone that knows about England knows that England and soccer go hand in hand, right? So started playing very, very young and was pretty good at it, if I'm honest, And so I played for a boys team for a long time because when I was little in the late 90s, early 2000s, there weren't the same level of women's teams available. So I played with boys, which was actually, in hindsight, a really great experience because I think that it made me tougher and it kind of made me face different adversity, which is something that I've had to get used to in a male dominated world, that sometimes you're going to face adversity or sometimes you are going to be one of the only women in a job. And it became something that I was quite comfortable with. So once I wasn't allowed to play with boys anymore, because in England, aged 13, 14, you basically age out of playing with boys because of changes in the biology, is the way they say it. I had to find a women's team. I was very grateful and fortunate that I was able to play with Watford, which is obviously a professional team. And I was put into the academy ranks with Watford and made my senior debut aged 16. Then I had a decision to make, right? Was I wanting to try and play professionally, which the team I was playing for was kind of semi-pro with Watford and then eventually Reading in my last year before I moved to America? Or did I want to get an education? And I wanted to play, but I also wanted to get an education because, as we know, professional soccer, at least in that time, 2012-13, wasn't going to pay the bills. So I looked to move to America and I was able to get a full-ride scholarship to play in college. Best 4 years of my life, getting to play soccer, getting to study, getting to develop what I wanted to do as a career. I was able to start doing commentary then, graduated with no student debt, which is always wonderful, which is one of the benefits if you're able to get a scholarship and work hard for that. And then I did a real job for a while. I call it a real job because it was more of a 9 to 5. And then got the call from Charlotte saying, hey, look, we love what you do. Would you like to be a commentator for us? And grabbed it by two hands. And the rest has really been history. I've taken advantage of every opportunity I've been given. And that's really it. I think it's about taking risks sometimes because it was a risk to quit a very stable, well-paying job and move into a freelance broadcaster. But it's paid off, fortunately.
Yes, it absolutely has. It's been just wonderful, really. Like I said, for the first two seasons of the club's existence, not only to see the club grow, but to see your career grow as well. One of the things I've learned about you along the way is you have a nickname of Mad Cat. So where did Mad Cat come from?
So Mad Cat is because of playing with the boys, right? So I think that it was a term of endearment of people realizing how tough I was. And, I think they thought that I was a little bit crazy, that I would go in for the ball, that I would pounce for the ball like a cat. And it kind of stuck. And I think that now I embody that even in my career, right? I take some risks, which is always going to be tough, but they're calculated risks, I will say. And I throw myself into any opportunity that I'm given, because I think the biggest thing I always tell myself is to never have regrets, right? And if I give 110% to whatever opportunity I have or whatever gig I'm doing, then even if I don't nail it in the way I want, I'm not going to have regrets when I put my head down at night. And I think that's the best way to live, right? With no regrets, to make sure that you've given 1,000% to anything you get to do.
So two more nicknames I want to ask you about. One, your daughter, clearly Mad Kitten, so obviously a playoff on you. But is she exactly like you? Is that why she's got the Mad Kitten moniker?
Yeah, I mean, I just hope that I'm leading by example, right? It's one of those things where growing up, I mean, my mum's amazing. My mum was a teacher, absolutely incredible working mum that I think set a standard for me that I could have a career and be a parent, which is huge. And I hope that I show Amelia that, you take a risk. She was only one when I took the gamble to do this Charlotte job. And it was one of those things where I still live in Atlanta. So that's a 4-hour drive. And I had to take the risk of taking the jump and as a young parent, but I want to lead by example to her, because I think having female role models is so important.
Absolutely. And I apologize. My dog just realized someone other than me was talking, so she started barking. I don't know if you
I
heard her
didn't
in the
hear it.
background.
You're
Yeah.
good. We didn't hear the
Oh,
dog.
that's a good thing. I muted as quickly as I could. So, and then last nickname I want to ask you about. I've not met your father personally yet, but I know he's been to a few of the Charlotte FC games, and he has a nickname that I'm very curious about. He's known as Fat Andy. Where did that one come from?
Okay, I'm gonna be real here, because and this doesn't set me in the best light, but my dad used to be a lot heavier, a lot heavier. Like, he looks great now and he's done amazing work in fitness and in the gym. So
Hmm.
again, amazing. But I was probably 5 or 6 and maybe 7, let's say 7. So young. And we used to listen to our hometown club, Reading Football Club, on the radio, which is kind of where I fell in love with sports radio. And they used to do a segment at the end where you would send a text in, and I would sign it off Fat Andy as my dad, because I wasn't going to put Jessica 6 years old or something like that, because they wouldn't trust my opinion. So it came from Fat Andy, and they would read out my texts. And that's where I fell in love with sports radio, right? It was amazing to get that thrill of your opinion being read out on the radio. And ever since then, I've been forming opinions, and now I get to be the person that's leading the conversation. But it's quite funny. I think back to it now that I came up with like a pseudonym, because I didn't trust my opinion. Maybe not trust, but I was worried that people might judge that it was coming from a young girl. And now I'm the person that's paid to give opinions. So it's amazing how it can come full circle.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious because, like I said, I've never personally met him, but I've seen him, and I'm like, I'm not getting this nickname. So I was just curious about that one. So you just mentioned that you were worried about the fact that, at that age, giving your opinion and really kind of the male view of the female opinion, right? And as you mentioned earlier, even in 2012, 2013, soccer really wasn't completely accepting of the female brand as it is now. I mean, it's still got a ways to go, clearly.
Yeah.
In America, I think the boom started to happen for us in 1996 with the Women's World Cup. Everybody knew the story with that one. But then it kind of took this lull. Mia Hamm was kind of popular for a while, but nothing really after that. And even with this past season, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but I do want to call out one moment from this past season that happened really just a few weeks ago. So there was a question asked, a very good question asked by a local reporter during one of the press conferences following a tough Charlotte FC outcome. And Coach Latanzio kind of took, he kind of took, he just didn't like how the question was asked, essentially. And I think, from my own personal opinion, if it would have been someone like me asking the question, the outcome probably would not have been the same in terms of his response. But how do you feel about that? Do you feel that that's still part of where there's still some acceptance that needs to be made for ladies in the sport?
Yeah. I mean, I want it to become the point where right now I'm one of the only full-time radio female commentators, right?
Mhm.
And I'm a rarity. And it's amazing to be a pioneer. It's amazing to lead the way. But at some point, I hope that it's not, oh, Jess is a female commentator. It's just Jess is a commentator. I've been blessed that since being with Charlotte, I feel like I've been taken at face value for who I am. I haven't had to change who I am. But also, people don't really say, oh, Jess is a great female commentator. They say Jess is a great commentator. I've earned that respect, which is a great testament to me. But I still think there's a lot of ways to go. I'm extremely fortunate. And I'm saying that right now. Who knows what the future holds for me, because I've seen a lot of colleagues not been so fortunate. I've not really had any trolls. I've not really had anyone say nasty things. I actually think America is far more advanced for that. When I follow a lot of media females in England, there's a lot more get back in the kitchen, or, you know, horrible sexist comments. You should be raising your kids rather than talking about football. I haven't been subdued to any of that, which I think is a huge credit to the Charlotte soccer base and beyond. But there's always going to be work to be done, right? And I think it's about educating ourselves as fans as well about the right way to approach it. Because you're right, Steve. I think that females may be judged in different ways, and it might not be deliberate. It might be accidental, subliminal ways of talking about it. You know, whether people focus on your appearance more than your knowledge. I mean, I get complimented on the way I look maybe more than a man would. And it's not someone trying to be a jerk to me. It's just natural ways of doing it. But these are things that gradually we hope are reduced. But for me, it's great now that I know that there are kids in high school, young kids listening to me all over Charlotte, all over the Carolinas, that hear a female voice and it becomes normalized. And my biggest one is, I talk a lot about being a good role model to females, but it's also about being a good role model to young boys as well. I want to inspire both boys and girls, because it is boys who are inspired by hearing someone like me that become more tolerant adults as they get older as well. Girls can have the benefit of seeing someone that looks like them or someone that's the same gender as them, but the boys can also benefit from it as well. So it's about being a role model for everybody rather than just focusing on inspiring the girls.
Absolutely. So I want to transition a little bit. I want to get, again to some of the young ladies that are coming up. But before we get there, I want to kind of walk through a little bit of, some of what you've seen really for the first 2 years with Charlotte FC. But not so much on the pitch. I'm talking about, like, just behind the scenes. I think you and I are very fortunate. You have a little bit more access to the club than I do, but I think we're still very fortunate to be able to see things that others don't get to see, behind the scenes. And there are some great players on this club, not only the ones that are still, rising stars trying to make their way up to the MLS ranks that are going through MLS next, or even, some of the under teams as well. But these guys also do some great things in the communities, not only here in Charlotte, but really around the world, since they're all from so many different places around the world. What's been the most heartwarming thing you've seen from just an individual player off the pitch that you like, the charitable aspect of what they do?
Yeah, I think community service is so important. And that's something I was really grateful to have instilled in me at a young age, right? That I had a fortunate upbringing and not everyone was as fortunate. And my favorite thing about college soccer is that service and education is emphasized as well. So I think as a goalkeeper, I'm going to say George Marks and his commitment to the laundry charity and making sure that laundry is accessible has been amazing, because it's something we take for granted, right? I said that as I put a load of laundry on right before we were communicating, Steve. We take it for granted, right? We can run our washer, we can run our dryer however many times a day we need to. Not everyone has that luxury. And for George Marks to be so young in terms of just being in his second year as a professional soccer player, but still want to give back, has been incredible. And then the other part, obviously, is just how everybody rallied around when Anton passed. I think seeing the whole Charlotte community come together was beautiful. It's so heart-wrenching that something so tragic had to take place. But that was a moment when I was stood in Charlotte the day that the news broke that Anton had passed, and everybody came together, whether it be Zoran Canetta, Joe Labou, coming up and giving fans hugs. That was when you realized that Charlotte FC was like a family, and the fans and the media and the staff and the players all treat each other as equals and part of something bigger than themselves, which is an amazing thing to be a part of. And that's where I feel very blessed for both of us, Steve, that we've been there since the very beginning. Not many people, 20 years down the line, when Charlotte is 20 years in, how many people are going to be able to say, I was there from the beginning? And that's something that's very special.
Yes, definitely. So, just getting to some of the girls that are making their way up now, whether it be grade school, high school, all that. You've been through all this. You've paved your trail and have gone through it. Now there's others that are paving their way, right? One of the things I've noticed really in the first 2 seasons with covering Charlotte FC is I started to cover some local things here. And I know my brand is Rowan County weather, and that's what it was to begin with, right? But it's become more than that because weather impacts literally everything we do. I don't care if you're playing soccer. I don't care if you're, just planning on going outside for a walk or you're just living your everyday life. The weather's having an impact on what you're doing. And so I wanted to tie that in with some of the things that I've been doing here. And so I've started covering a lot of the local grassroots type sports, if you will, whether it be college, I'm sorry, not college, whether it be high school or even just what we call, um, like Pop Warner here in certain aspects. And I've seen a lot of these young girls really get, kind of left to the side, not so much because of anything they're doing, but more so because, I mean, let's be honest, this is America. Baseball and football are still the big deal here. But things are slowly changing. So, with that said, a lot of the girls that I see that get to play that are amazing at what they're doing at such a young age. I can just see from listening and talking to them that they go, man, I don't know what's going to be out there past this for me once I graduate from high school. I don't know how good my chances are going to be. So, some insight, if you would, on what these young ladies who are making their way through now, what they can do to get themselves set up for the next level.
Yeah, I think firstly, I feel for them because I get the adversity that you face, right? There's always going to be adversity, but trying to keep that positive mental attitude instead of letting that adversity get to you is pivotal, right? And never forget why you started playing in the first place. I think sometimes in this day and age, with the rise of social media, with the pressure that you feel on yourselves, comparing yourselves to other people, you get caught up in it and wonder, am I good enough? Or what do I need to be doing? Do I need to be training 27 hours in the day? I mean, it's really hard. And I can't imagine being in that era where now you compare everything to everybody else. Firstly, remember why you started, and why did you start? Because you love the game. And I think playing for fun, no matter what level you're at, it is so important, because if you stop having fun, then you're not going to be performing to your best of the ability. And that was something I had to remind myself time and time again. Remember, I was 16 playing senior soccer with 25, 26-year-old grown women. There was a point where that was terrifying, and I had to pull myself back and be like, I got to have fun. I've got to be smiling, showing up. If I'm dreading going to play, that's a problem. So if you're not enjoying it, take a step back and wonder, why am I not enjoying it? Is there too much pressure on me? Am I worried about the bigger picture? Enjoy every game, because if you're enjoying it, you're going to play better. That's number one. Number two, give 110% in everything you do, because you never know who's watching a game. You'll be surprised. I work with enough colleges now to know that colleges don't just scout at big showcases. They will show up. They will just show up. And you never know. It might be that Queens's coach has a kid or a cousin or a nephew that's playing with you that you don't know about, and they might be at the game. And if you're giving 110% and performing in that game, you might turn heads. I hate to be the cliche, but at the end of the day, it's called a student athlete for a reason, right? And that's going to be what opens more opportunities about you. One of the reasons I had a full ride is because I was very, very committed to my studies, and I was able to split up money I got from soccer and money I got from academics. That makes you the most valuable player possible, because coaches have a budget. Coaches have a number of scholarships they can give purely for soccer. If they know that you are academic, you are going to be top of the list, because they're not going to have to worry about you being ineligible. They're not going to have to worry about you, not being able to keep up with being a student athlete. Because I'll tell you, it's exhausting. It's exhausting getting a degree and playing soccer, because it's like 2 jobs all in one. So grades, very, very, very important. And then once you're getting to the stage to have these conversations when you're in high school, starting to get some show reels, starting to get some tape, putting together your tape, being invested in that. Look, I still have to put together tape now of broadcasting, and I get it. It can be hard. Like, I have to listen back to myself talking for 90 minutes. It can be hard to listen to yourself. It can be hard to see when you're playing a game, oh, I should have taken a better touch there. But you have to be invested in that, because that's what coaches are going to ask for. The opportunities will come if you're having fun, giving 110%, and focusing on your grades. The other part is, okay, and this is kind of controversial in the US, right? But I'm going to say it anyway. Division One soccer isn't the be all and end all. Like, people get so hung up at playing SEC or playing SoCon or playing ACC. Look, it's great, but would you rather ride the bench for 4 years, or would you rather get to play? Now, there's a few people that are going to go and be a 4-year starter at an SEC school. Yeah, of course there are. But those are probably kids that are also playing in the youth national team right now. Or these are kids that, have already been committed since they were damn, sophomores. It's okay to go play Division 2. It's okay to go play Division 3. There are kids, and I say this from the men's side, but I'm sure it's the same on the women's side. Patrick Adjuman played Division 3 for his first college years. It doesn't matter where you go, it's what you make of it. And I went to a Division 2 school. I had Division 1 offers, but I didn't get hung up on that. I wanted to go where the coach valued me. I wanted to go where they had my degree. I wanted to go where there were connections with my degree. So Atlanta was perfect, because I knew that was a hub for sports media. No matter, don't get caught up in what social media says you have to go. Keep an open mind to whatever university and institution suits you, because soccer may not be there forever, right? Like, not many people end up doing what I do and ending up being involved in the sport forever. That's just the nature of it. But your degree and your future and the skills you will gain from the college soccer is going to be what's more important. So go where suits you as a whole human being, rather than just getting so hung up on the soccer program.
Yes, definitely. And it's interesting. You mentioned reels and getting the highlight reels and things together. And that was one of the things I was thinking about when you were talking just now, is I have seen an uptick really over the past, I'd say 4 or 5 months, really, of not only the football players kind of started, the high school football players kind of started, but I've seen it with the soccer players now. Right now here in North Carolina, it's the boys. The boys season, they're in playoffs right now. They're wrapping their season up. The girls will start in the spring. But I've seen plenty of reels where these kids are loading up to what was Twitter, that's now X, and all that, and putting it out there. And like
Look,
you
we
said,
criticize social media a lot, because I do think
yeah,
that it has negatives in terms of body image and things like this, but you can
right,
use it as a tool. Using it
right,
as a tool to share your highlight reels, to share your footage, to share your updates,
hmm,
it is a great opportunity. And this is another word of advice, because it's worked for me a lot. Always be careful with who you meet, that you're giving your best impression, because you never know the connections you may have. In my example, when I was commentating a high school game, little did I know I was going to meet my now mentor, that's the voice of Atlanta United. And because I was respectful, because I asked intriguing questions, because I was polite and enthusiastic, he took me under his wing. And Jason was the guy that called me with the middleman in this Charlotte deal. If
hmm,
I had come across like a jerk, or if I had been too nervous to communicate with him, this may have never happened. And don't be afraid to reach out for help as well. Even if it's me, what's the harm in shooting a DM or shooting a message or reaching out? Form those connections. Now, don't copy and paste something, because that's a pet peeve. I don't want to receive a message from someone asking for help that I can tell they've sent to every journalist in the world.
hmm,
Personalize it. But you never know who might be interested in mentoring, who might know somebody that knows somebody. Remember, I work with 5 or 6 different colleges in the season commentating. I know enough head coaches, that I can rattle off of my fingers.
hmm,
Don't be afraid to ask, but make sure if you're asking for help that you approach it the correct way. Copy
yes,
and pasting isn't the way to do it, but sending a personalized message, reaching out, knowing about the person, hearing what they've done, quoting something they've done, is a great way to be able to get help, because people want to get back. There's enough good people in this world that are in high positions that want to help, but you have to be willing to ask.
absolutely. I would also say just make sure you're still being yourself in that too, because I mean, you
Authenticity, exactly.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
when you pull off that mask at some point, if you're utilizing someone enough, at some point they're going to get to know who you are. So if you're putting on a fake persona, you're going to get uncovered at some point.
Yep, definitely. So a couple of quick things before we wrap up, because I know you are busy. You may be on like Good Morning America or something later. Who knows? But but I just wanted to ask you. So couple of just generalized questions. So the first one is most memorable moment you've had in your own personal career, whether it be on the pitch or even on the radio.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with playing career. Like I said, making my debut at 16 against West Ham. I showed up, had no idea I was going to be playing, thought I was just going to be on the bench because I've been on the bench quite a bit. And then the coach tells me, "Hey, Jess, you're starting today." And then running to the car to like call my dad and be like, "Hey, Dad, I'm starting." And then him making sure he made it to the game. But I mean, 16 years old to be able to put on that jersey and play for the first team and make my debut, and we won 2-0. I kept a clean sheet. Was really special. And then going to school the next day and being like, "Yeah, guys, I played for Watford against West Ham. It was really cool." Like, amazing experience. And I think it forced me to grow up really quickly, which is very cool when you're able to mature in that way.
Real quick before I go to my next question. So you talked about your clean sheet. I think this is one place where goalies do not get enough credit. Clean sheets are extremely hard to get. And being a goalie is an extremely tough thing. I know a lot of folks sit there and think, well, all you have to do is keep the ball from going in this net that's around you. But explain to everyone
They
that's
kick it
watching.
really, really hard. And the
Yeah,
goal is
exactly.
8 feet by 8 yards. I mean, it's a
Right.
huge goal when you think about it, particularly in the
Yeah.
female game when most goalkeepers are 5'6", 5'7". That's a lot of coverage to make. And I think for goalkeepers, they're often the unsung heroes, right? Because they're not going to show up on the stat sheet in the same way. They're not going to have goals. They're not going to have assists. And all it takes is one moment of your defense letting you down and you lose your clean sheet. So yeah, I'm a big advocate for defenders and goalkeepers
Yes.
getting their flowers as well.
Absolutely. All right, so I asked you about your most memorable moment, whether it be on the pitch or, in general. So what would be your most memorable moment really from your broadcast career so far? Because I know you've done a lot of different things in broadcasting. So what would be the one for you?
Yeah, I'll stick with Charlotte, but I think calling out Imama's first goal in history, and it worked out really well for us. It sounds bad, but the TV guys thought it was Guzman Carujo that scored the goal, and we got it right. So our goal call was everywhere. And knowing that that one will go down in history, I mean, it'll probably be a trivia question one day, right? Like, who scored
Yeah.
Charlotte FC's first ever goal in history? And knowing that I called that first ever goal and that we nailed the goal call was really special because there was a lot of pressure on getting it
Yeah.
right? It was the first goal in history. We had to
Mhm.
get it right. And the fact that we got it right and that I listened back to it and I don't regret anything I said, it is very special.
Definitely. And you're right. That's probably going to be one of two trivia questions for sure that we've seen in the first 2 years. The second one would be true false. Did Mickey Mouse call a Charlotte FC game?
I mean, that will also be one of the most memorable, the moment it went viral and that feeling. It took a while for it to sink in and become a positive. I'm not going to lie. I was freaking out when it first happened, Steve. I'm not going to lie to you.
So adversity now, I want to ask you about your most adverse moment. First of all, we can go back to, either on the pitch or in school in general.
Yeah, I was probably in fifth grade and was playing. There was no girls' school football team, like primary school football team. There was only like a boys' one that I played on.
Yep.
And a parent wrote a letter to the school saying that they didn't want me to play anymore because they were scared that the boys would hurt me. And I think that was the first time I'd never thought about it. Like I'd never really thought about being any different. I just always thought, okay, I'm a really good goalkeeper and I'm saving this team and I'm playing. And to have my dad and mum have to go into a meeting with the principal, the head teacher, as we call it in England, to discuss whether I'd be able to continue to play, even though I was the starting goalkeeper, there was no one else, because some random dad was scared I would get hurt. It was my first eye-opener of there's going to be people that want to talk you down just because you're a girl, right? Or there's going to be people that don't think you're good enough just because you're a girl. And that was really hard. And I think I was very upset the more I think back. The fact that it stays with me now, I mean, we're talking, what is that, like 20 years ago? The fact that still
Right.
stays with me is pretty wild. So I think that says the impact it had. but I use that as fuel to my flames, right? And when someone tells you you can't do it, or someone's trying to protect you, it's not your place, right? It wasn't that
Right.
guy's place. If my parents thought I was safe, if my parents were happy, what does it matter? I'm not your
Right.
kid, you know.
Yeah.
But I laugh at it now, and
Yeah.
it just makes me think. Look, the career I went on and had, who knows if his son's even still playing football. So there was a lot of hate in that guy's heart, and he was probably frustrated that I was taking the spot of someone else. And you don't hate the person, you're disappointed in the way they act. And I just hope that maybe he's had a eye-turning moment now where he sees that, that wasn't his place.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you about most adverse moment in life, but like you said, that was 20 years ago. So maybe that was also the same answer, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was
Yeah.
like the starting point of
Yeah.
knowing. But the most adverse moment in my life, getting injured my freshman year,
Yeah.
really, really serious knee injury, like 3 hour surgery, and had to
Mm.
make the choice. Was I going to go home and have my surgery, or was I going to stay here in the States? And I'm so glad I did opt to stay in the States. But you got to think, I was going to go through that surgery, 18 years old, parents weren't here. The fact that I was able to overcome that, to rehab, and then to continue playing and play in the career I had, was really special. So that was really that. You talk about a turning point, and you can turn left and go back to England, or you can turn right and stay here. I'm really glad I stayed right and stayed here, but it wasn't easy.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So last question, Jess. Holiday season's coming up. Everybody has all these different traditions they like to do. When I asked Coach Osborne on Friday what his was, he said they're big Griswold fans and they go to the mountains and get the biggest Christmas tree they can find. So, what's your favorite holiday tradition at your home?
Boxing Day. I mean, no one knows about it, but I love a good Boxing Day and watching a football game. I remember growing up. I mean, I love Christmas. Don't get me wrong. Christmas, just in general, Christmas dinner, Christmas food, advent calendars with badass chocolates in them.
Mm.
But Boxing Day is very special in England, where the day afterwards, it's a family day, it's a holiday. And we would go and always watch my team play Reading, and that was really special. And as you can tell, football, soccer seems to have a strong root. I think Boxing Day is American football's Thanksgiving, right? Everyone
Mhm.
watches American football on the TV on Thanksgiving. In England, we either watch football or go to a football game on Boxing Day. So absolutely love it.
I don't know if you caught that, but I gave you thumbs up at the minute you said Boxing Day because I'm very familiar with it. And my wife always gives me a little bit of grief every year because she's like, "Why are you so excited about this day? Because Christmas was yesterday and it's like all over now."
But it's what
So I,
keeps the holiday spirit going, right? I feel like
that's
it's
right.
that, like, it's such an anti-climax when Christmas is over and Boxing Day gives you that joy.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you've been busy and just really a personal note real quick for myself is one you said don't be afraid to send out, the DM or whatever and ask. And even though I knew you, I still sent a DM asking you if you had time to join today because I know you're like everywhere. And there's so many things you could have been doing other than talking to me for the past, half an hour or so. So I certainly appreciate that. I know the young ladies who are going to be watching this, I've already had several local soccer teams retweeting or reposting that I was interviewing you today and they were looking forward to seeing it. So, thank you so much for that.
Absolutely. Like I say, always don't be afraid to reach out. It's great to be able to give back. And I was blessed with great mentors. So always looking to see how I can help other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jess, you've been a force. I've told you this before. Just it's been inspirational to watch you the past 2 seasons, and looking forward to watching you. As we go forward. Just the fact that you're, somebody who is not afraid to just burst through that glass ceiling, even in what you're doing. So it's been a pleasure to watch that. And I keep telling my daughter to watch you because I think you're one of those folks that she can look at, even though she has zero interest in soccer or anything else she still has somewhat of an interest in doing other things that apply to what you do. And it's been inspirational to watch that and to see her take a look at what you've been doing as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Jess. And that's it for now. But thank you, everybody, for joining. And, we look forward to having more of these interviews as we go forward.